We're in.
We are in. So welcome back to our listeners. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
And we are back in with post-show today.
Post-show. The day has been and gone. You
Yes.
wake up the next day with your patchy tan on and
And you don't really know what the hell's happened. It's that whirlwind of like, oh, I've done the show. And depending on what's coming up next, so whether you're going to compete again or you're full off-season mode, it's like, blimey, I need to sort of take a moment to understand where I'm at physically and mentally. So today I'm going to talk about the mind warp of post-show, so the psychological side, and then what we've decided, isn't it, that we'll do 2 episodes. So today focusing on that, and then next episode be a bit more educational with the training and nutrition off the back of a show.
Absolutely. The psychological whirlwind that is adapting to exactly what's just happened, really.
So where do we begin?
Okay, well, I think the first thing is you're going to have a series of feelings depending on how the day panned out, I guess. So, if you've placed, you'll maybe have a sense of elation, maybe you haven't, maybe you're not so elated, maybe you just went in for the fun of it and you've come away and sort of just loved every second and are dying to do it again. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you've gone in and done it and you've hated it and you're kind of left with a feeling of, that wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because I've met people along the way that, like you just said there, they've competed, and I think it's probably because they didn't get the result they wanted, that they've gone, fuck that, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? Why am I putting myself through a prep for potentially, maybe 6 months, and then it's like, I didn't even place top 3. What's the point?
Yeah.
And that again is setting yourself up before the show to go in this, to be a bit more open-minded, maybe.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think as well, like, you've got that kind of psychological thing going on post-show, and then you've also got, you wake up and, I don't know about you, Sarah, but always the day after show, you feel so tight. You literally are like, and you almost kind of feel like, why didn't I feel like that on show day a lot of the time?
Yeah.
You also have that feeling. Yeah.
I remember you said before about, like, it's after a show, we're the only sport where most athletes are like, I want to get in the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have that every time, like, because every time after a show, I'll go for a meal with my family or whatever. I almost feel like I want to use that energy from the food.
Yeah.
And I want to see what my condition's like. So I'm like, well, why wouldn't I go and get a pump?
Yeah.
And it's that, like, should I do that? And you wake up at like 4 or 5 o'clock, like you normally wouldn't. It's like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, like, you've been institutionalized for so long, haven't you, to kind of get up and go to the gym or go on your walk or whatever. And it's very difficult to just switch that off the day after. I always now, not so much in the early days, in the early sort of contests, I might, at some point during that day after, take myself to the gym just to kind of be in an environment that's comfortable. Now I take the whole day off, if not the whole week off, really, unless it's just steady steps or just chilled out cardio, no resistance in my week. But that's the week there. And again, it comes back to depending on what the next goal is, whether you're rolling on to another show or whether you're not. But that's the time there when you reflect on the day itself. You take away the kind of the good things, and you look at the kind of the plus points and the negative points. I get my guys, I think I've said this to you before, but I get them all to do a post-show reflections exercise where they look at everything as a whole. And obviously that kind of is only when they're at the end of their season rather than midway through, because they're still working towards their shows if they're going to be doing 3 or 4. But for the sake of this podcast, should we maybe speak about it from the perception of you've done it and you're not doing any other shows onwards?
Yeah, because that's definitely a very different mind warp. Definitely heading into like a reverse diet and an off season, it's like suddenly having all that freedom with food and maybe having a week off training or however long you're going to have off. That freedom, like you say, that institutionalized, it's almost like straight away I thought you're actually institutionalized in your own head. You're like, you're in this, tunnel vision.
Yeah.
The show comes, you hopefully can immerse yourself and enjoy the day, even if the result's not maybe what you were striving for.
Yeah.
But wake up the next morning and, you know, you might have your husband with you or whatever, and you've got your family, and you might be waking up in a hotel room and it's like, okay, so for breakfast, I can have what I want.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That you're faced with choice.
Yeah.
And I think post show, this is a big one, that choice comes into play. And, you know, if you, depending on how you want to approach the next few days post your show, if you've got a coach, they're going to say, you know, you can have a day off, maybe a few things here or there, and then you're going to start going back into a more regulated reverse out to manage what will happen in that very small period after the show, which essentially, when you take your body to a really low body fat,
Yeah.
and then you start to introduce higher sugar or higher fatty foods or higher carbohydrate dense foods, something called the Ghrelin effect takes place physiologically in the body, which tells the body, I like this, I want more of this for optimal body fat levels. It wants to get you back to those body fat levels that are healthy for your physique,
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. And that regulation period there is going to be crucial to allow you to exit that strict dieting phase correctly and sensibly without potentially doing your metabolism a hell of a lot of damage. So there's so many little intricate things that can go mental in that first week post show.
Yeah. It's also trying to, I guess, take the tools of a prep into the off season period, that first week of that restriction, as to, you know, having choice, but not going absolutely apeshit and just following that effect that your body's going through. And because, like, honestly, after a show, I can eat like,
And you will. Mm-hmm.
it's unbelievable. Like, I say to Kieran, how the hell did I eat all of that food after a show? And
Mm-hmm.
you can just keep, and it's like never ending. And I think that sudden release of, you know, that feel good factor of nice tasting food, different food, being with your family, you can get really carried away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, one night of that, like say the night of the show, isn't going to break the bank. Having a nice breakfast the next morning isn't going to break the bank. But what you don't want to do is find yourself in a pattern of kind of gorging on foods for longer periods of up to, you know, 48 to 72 hours post show. You can do so much damage. And, you know, a good rule of the thumb that I always take with my guys is exactly that. Have your meal off with your family. You might consume quite a bit, maybe have, you know, your morning off, and that day can be flexy, but you still maintain certain rules, like the consumption of the carbohydrate and protein has to be at a certain level, and then I give a bit of a percentage over that they can go over those first few days post show, so that they are still got an element of control. And I feel that that helps people, because if you've ever been in that situation, and Sarah, you've probably been in this situation, I certainly have, where you've done the binge that one day,
Oh yeah.
and you feel horrendous. You feel like you've swollen up like a big sponge of water. Your digestion is terrible because you've not experienced this level of high fat. So, you know, your digestive system is playing havoc.
Yeah.
Not nice. And you're sweating in your sleep. You're just a mess, a mess. And it's not a nice feeling. And if anything, if you do that, let that be a very big teacher,
Yeah.
because that's going to help you stop that pattern if you really want to make sure that you're not going to like just let Ghrelin effect or let your body's unconscious want to eat take over.
Yeah, because like you said on the show day pod, it's very easy to do that, but you can, it's almost like, because we have done that, we've learned the best lessons because we've had those horrible effects after it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one show, so I think it was probably my first show, we went for a meal after and Kieran was like, order whatever you want. Like, even if you just want a mouthful of a dish, order it. And the whole table was full, like no joke. There was like, probably there was 4 of us, so there was like 6 or 7 mains. The starters were like cheesy chips with chili on, garlic bread, garlic bread with cheese on. And it was like every palate experience that I thought I wanted suddenly here. I remember I was like, can I have sausage and mash? But I don't actually like sausage and mash, but I think I might want to taste it.
Yeah, you just want to taste everything. And the other thing on this as well is you have all that food in front of you, right? But you very quickly realize that although you might still be able to pack in more, you've shrunk your stomach considerably. And although you can pack in loads, the feeling of the expansion and the bloating that you get from high levels of increase, like just putting food in, is so uncomfortable. It really is. And even in the moment, you can eat loads, but a few hours later, it's just like, how did I ever eat?
And that one, like, we had a 4-hour journey back, and it's like, you know, that sort of pregnant belly.
Yeah.
I remember laying down, I was on the recliner, but I couldn't sleep because I had this mass.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I couldn't get comfortable. And then we got back and I couldn't sleep. And like you say, at the time you can, and then it's after. And I remember the guy just before we left was like, did you want the hot chocolate you ordered? And I was like, take it away.
Yeah.
Because it was like, no, I don't want it. And I think my biggest lesson was, because speaking with Stephen after that and whatever, he was like, you've done that now. I've advised to potentially go for more like a la carte type meal. So you might have like 3 courses, some really nice palate experiences of foods that you wouldn't ever sort of eat. And then when I've done it that way around, like every competitor I meet that says to me, like, what do you have post show? I'm like, choose things that you can't really track. If you use my fitness pal, like, use this opportunity to have something. If it was like a la carte, you could have duck with an orange sauce and like all these things that there's no way you can track those. It would be very hard. Well, you could. And then like for the dessert, have something that's like, you know, a rich chocolate torte with flavored ice cream that you've never had, things that you can't really replicate.
Totally. Yeah.
It's nice then.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you're having something to look forward to, but you know that, and it's something special. It's celebrating a special occasion in a way. And I think that does come from a bit more experience for sure. But you know, there's been studies that have literally been done on this stuff in terms of bodybuilding. A lot of them have found that it can take, honestly, weeks, if not months, for a body to regulate post a dieting phase as extreme as the ones that we do. And included in that is appetite regulation. So how you start that reverse out is going to be critical in being able to manage your appetite through this next phase. Because if you start all in and you literally throw everything in, right, and you go from, like, let's call it like a 15 or 1700 calorie diet average across the week, might be lower, might be a bit more depending on the size of the competitor, but say it's around 1500, and then you go from 1500 to consuming 2200 instantaneously for the next 2 weeks, and say even in the first week it's more than that, say it's 2500 of just shit foods, like crap that you just, like you say, that you know that
you want,
that you just want, you know, your appetite is going to go through the roof, because the thermogenic effect of that food is going to make your metabolism go like 10 times faster than where it's at the moment. And your body's just going to want more and more and more and more, and your appetite's going to go through the roof. And so this is where we kind of talk about, right, well, how can we manage it as best we can, where you start the kind of almost ball rolling with going back to where you were just prior to the show, and then starting to trickle in carbohydrate weekly, managing your weight to see, okay, I've trickled in a bit of this food, my weight's gone up, but it's starting to level out here. Great, now I can increase more. Now it's leveling out. Great, now I'll increase more, and go that way with your appetite regulation and your body's reverse out, so that you're still going to look badass. You're going to look really good. B, the body is having time to kind of adapt to the new foods and also the increase in calories. So instead of it just going all on as fat, actually might be able to monitor kind of how much fat you're putting on the frame. And also, if you're going to be training, the window post show, guys, is like, if used properly, that can be a gold mine for gains.
And to start you off for your next phase.
it's like the little magic pot for off season starting. If you want to go into your off season pretty quickly, but managing your calories, you can make some serious improvements, because the body's like, again, it's like a sponge.
Yeah.
Everything you're feeding it's like soaking up and going, I'm going to put this to my legs, I'm going to put this to my back, I'm going to put this to my abs. You know, it's like the whole thing. It's just, it's a whole process. Like that's actually one of my favorite parts of coaching, is the post-show phase, because it's where you can make some serious improvements, and also then the regulation of hormones and regulation of appetite, all of that kind of stuff from a female perspective is paramount, because this is where we go crazy.
Yeah. And I think to set yourself up psychologically for that, I know that having a coach being able to talk to you about that phase before you even compete is so important, because when you get true stage lean, you're not with it. You know, when you get to show day, you know, no matter what I say to myself, I'm fine. You know, I'm not being ratty. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm not food focused. In all honesty, you are, you know, there's so much going in to that day, to that prep day in, day out, that it would be, you know, really stupid of us to say you're not going to feel a whirlwind of emotions the next day.
Massively.
Yeah. And probably similar with you, it doesn't matter if you win the show, if you place top 3, if you don't place top 3, you still have some element of an emotional rebound.
You do. And like there's so much, like we said in the pods before, but like you pour so much into it. It doesn't really matter what level you're at, whether you're a beginner, whether you're going for a pro show, or wherever you're at. It is such an all-consuming sport that when you come out of the other end of it, even if you get the result you want, there's still like a recalibration process you've got to go through. And it's icky, it's not comfortable. Like even when you're coming out, and even say you did your next phase really well, I often talk about like you've got the brain, you've got like your psychology here, and then it's like the body is just doing its thing. It's saying, right, okay, I want to grow, I want to put a bit of mass on, I want to put size on. This is great. She's feeding me. The body itself is like dragging the brain along on a lead to try and catch up with it, because the body's changing, but the mind is having to visually adapt to the changes it's seeing physically. And that's where we see all these psychological issues start happening, because people are looking at themselves in the mirror going, oh my God, my ab lines have gone. Oh my God, I'm getting too big too quick. I can't believe I did all that work and now it's disappeared. And all these horrible sorts of things start creeping up, don't they? And it's like the adjustment phase of being super lean to now just transferring into a fuller version of that lean and being okay with that. But that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know if you would ever really get to a point where you're completely comfortable with it, but I definitely think that if you can start to realize that if you're going to be part of this sport as a long-term thing, every element you take on, every phase you take on is an extreme version of. So stage lean is an extreme lean. And then in an off season, if you truly want to gain, then you've got to be willing to get uncomfortable. You know, my biggest gaining phase, my off season was probably 10, 11 months, but next time I'm looking at maybe 2 years, because I want to put on, you know, some serious muscle, and I'm able to, I guess, digest that now psychologically. Before, even 10 months is quite hard to just keep putting on weight. I don't know how much you would go up being a figure competitor, but the highest I've gone up in an off season, but that was from when I was like just skinny.
Tiny,
yeah. When I went into an off season to get some proper muscle mass, I went up by just over 16 kilos.
Yeah.
And that was uncomfortable. Like psychologically, physically, it was really bloody hard. And, you know, a lot needs to come off when you go back into a prep. And I know that the ideal now for us, we probably won't go over maybe 10 kilograms, but when you're very, very skinny, or, you know, on the leaner side, you haven't really competed for very long, you haven't done weight training for very long. If you truly want to get that size coming on for when you next compete, you're looking at, you know, potentially more than that 10 kilograms, depending on where you're at and what category.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm always really cautious on this one because everybody's going to be very different in terms of the amount of weight that they need to gain and to increase for their goals. And I would say actually that a small bikini competitor can afford to put on more because they've got more leeway to go with obviously muscle gaining. For me, a good rule of the thumb in a good state of affairs, not in the middle of, a pandemic, but in a good state of affairs, you're talking roughly around 7 to 10 kilos of stage weight for me.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. There's this kind of, dare I say it, and I could do a whole pod on this. This is something I know my clients know I'm very passionate about, but I detest the term bulking for females. I just don't like it. And there's lots of reasons for that. But there's a kind of almost, how do I put it, like trendy idea that we need to shed loads of weight in order to gain good quality tissue. And that's not necessarily the truth. You need to be in enough surplus calorie wise to be able to gain tissue. Does that mean you have to hold an extra 7 to 8 kilos of fat? No, you don't have to have excess fat to build quality tissue. And I've always kind of spoken about this. And I think every person's going to be very different, like you say. But I think a good rule of the thumb is once you get to your sort of 6 to 8 kilo mark, you need to have a good look at yourself with your coach or whoever you trust and go, okay, do I need to be excessively bigger than where I am now when I'm in this calorie surplus and my performance is good, my fitness is still good. And you mentioned something there, which I think is really important. You don't feel horrendous because you shouldn't have to be in an off-season body feeling full and sluggish and almost overweight. Do you know what I mean?
It was, because at the end, when I got to that was like my biggest sort of off-season phase, that Stephen and I, we kept assessing, reassessing. And because I'd gone from like literally, if anyone looks at my Instagram and that, how skinny I was at stage weight for my first comp, I literally didn't have any muscle. So it was definitely appropriate for me to go into that sort of
heavy,
kilos. If I put on 16 kilos now from stage weight, that would be, completely so far away from what I need to do to progress. It just, I mean, I dread to think what I'd even look like and why I don't feel it would be needed. Like that would just be phenomenal amounts on my frame now.
Yeah.
But there's, some athletes, if like you come from a dance background, you would have already had a good amount of muscle. So your off season wouldn't have needed to facilitate the muscle gain that I needed. So like you say, it's so individual, but having a coach to guide you through that is essentially what, we would both recommend.
Yeah, and it's there's a good point in that as well, that it's important to note that when you're shifting gears from sort of being in the stage contest prep phase to post-show, part of that is a reframing of what the structure around the food means. So it's no longer for a dieting phase, it's now for health. Health is massive. Like people forget this, like they kind of come off stage and we all have a big celebration and then it's like, what do I do now? Well, you still want to be fit and healthy, right? You don't want to just lose it all, surely, or you hope not, at least. It's that reframing of, okay, I need to think about what are my expectations of myself? Because if I've just done all of this incredible work and I've been so disciplined and I've worked really hard for this goal, I can transfer those things over to this area now where I need to think about my own health, regaining, you've maybe lost your menarche, you've maybe lost your period, so regaining hormonal health, then starting to train for fitness, not just contest. Yes, performance. Yeah.
Because it's definitely when you get to the tail end of a prep, if you think that you're going to be potentially lifting what you were when you went into a prep, you could be very mistaken. I mean, my mentality now, again, doing it for so many times, but my mentality now is I lift like I lift when I go into a prep for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But again, psychologically, it's maybe trying to understand that it's normal to come off the back of a show and for one, you might not want to go to the gym. You might just feel so, you've been so consumed. It might be that you just need a little bit of time away. And like you mentioned before, which I think is a really good idea, going walking, doing some like activity stuff.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, like just bring in some things. I always say don't plan shitloads of stuff after a show, because for one, psychologically, you're not quite there, and also socializing and stuff, maybe you don't want to do that. If you get the result you want, you might, but if you don't, it's like, I don't actually really want to talk to anyone at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. Like, this is, I guess, why it's important as well to have people around you who support you with it, who you can talk to about it, because this is kind of you time now, like for you to prioritize yourself, and whether that is taking the training session down a notch, reducing the activity a little bit. Maybe the walks aren't cardio walks in the morning fasted. Maybe they're now, I'm going out with my dogs, I'm a pal for like a good chat. They're maybe more like that for the couple of weeks post show. So that you're starting to regain a little bit more flexibility with it, but you're still keeping a routine so it doesn't feel so far away from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if you are booking those things in, like the walks, choose the friends that that no matter how you feel, if you want to like sort of diarize those sorts of things to look forward to, choose those friends that it doesn't matter whether you win, you place, you don't place, you're completely content in their company. And if you don't have those people, then don't book it in. And if you do feel all right, touch with people after the show. Don't feel this pressure. And also, I've probably said before, you sometimes think that you're going to go out for a meal after the show, have like maybe an off-plan meal the next day, and then you're going to be full of all this energy and you're going to want to do loads of stuff. And it's definitely not like that.
No, you want to sleep for quite a long time.
And you just want to like be a mom.
Yeah, I know. And like, there's this actual term, post-competition blues. It's a real thing. And this is why I completely agree with you. Talking to people and having people around you is going to help you the most, because it's like a post-comp depression almost. Like, you've gone from this elated high where you've dumped all these hormones into the show and all this energy, and then you take a step away from it and you've used all that energy, and then it's gone, stop. Like, you don't have to get up the next day to do all this. And that's the sort of where you can come crashing down. And it can be really, really challenging.
Yeah, because you sort of feel quite redundant, don't you?
Yeah, you start to like, oh, right, was that it?
Because I've always thought, until I won a show, I thought, if I win a show, that will literally complete my life. Like, I genuinely thought that I would never be unhappy again. And I woke up the next day after winning my first show, and I went for a walk, and I was looking around, and I was like, oh, everything's the same. What do I do with all this feel? Like, all these things are going through my mind. Do I compete again? Did I actually win that show? My God, I've got some more followers on Instagram. And suddenly famous for hours.
Yeah, it's like, I've actually had a few clients come on at this stage in that really awful kind of lost phase. Some people can get quite lost. And then I often say, like, that's a good time to potentially refocus on a slightly different goal. I mean, obviously maybe not quite going crazy at it at first, but say maybe you've come away from it and bodybuilding is not going to be something you want to do all the time right now, but you want to come back to it, then maybe just shifting gears to getting a coach to help you with just keeping fit for that while is going to be useful. Or I always remember watching a documentary with one of my favorite figure athletes, Erin Stern. Well, she's bikini now. She's gone back to bikini. Whoop, whoop. And she actually looks amazing in that class. But anyway, I digress. She often used to talk about like the post-contest blues sort of time, and how she would deal with it was to literally put her focus and energies into a completely contrasting goal, something that was completely different. So she would do things like random hobbies. I think she did like horse riding and stuff like that, or something that was just completely different. I mean, still had a physical element that wasn't so competitive based. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Gives you a sense of purpose almost. Something like that as well. It's quite therapeutic, and it's almost like, you can be outside and you can different feelings. Like I've got a friend, Tom, that's just competed not long ago, and he booked how to speak Spanish
Awesome.
and salsa lessons.
That's so good. I love it.
And he was just like, I needed to do something. Like he started looking at booking it before the show, and then he booked it to sort of start 2 weeks after the show, and then it's that element of giving you something to focus on that's going to challenge you. So you got the physical element of the salsa, and then you got the mental element of the Spanish once you're firing on all cylinders again. And I definitely think there's some merit in thinking about, you know, a few weeks out, start thinking about what you're going to do the night of the show. So is it that you are going to go for a nice meal? I personally, psychologically, I don't know about now, but before, if we're talking sort of first timers and shows in your earlier days, start having a look at menus and stuff. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes people go, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. But if it gives you peace of mind to look at somewhere you like, look at the menu and go, okay, nice starter, main, dessert, or whatever, that sets you up. You can then book the place and you haven't got to worry. And then the next day, you know, if you are in a hotel, have a look at what's for breakfast the next day. If there's something you fancy. I normally just have like a shake the next day and then go for a nice lunch.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I just find that in the morning, because I'm used to doing fasted stuff and that, like you mentioned earlier, it almost feels like a waste because it's so early.
Yeah,
But each to their own. And then you might go for a dinner and then go back on plan or flexi from the following day. But if you can start, I definitely wouldn't, you know, get too obsessed with that. Like we said in the post show, the show day one, you don't want to be going, I want to have this, and this.
Don't stockpile. Oh my gosh, don't do that. Yeah.
I mean, I've never done that. Have you?
No, I've never done that either. I know some people who have.
I do, yeah.
And like they've gone back to their house and their cupboards are stacked, you know.
Yeah, I think that would be really scary for me. Like,
yeah, that would overwhelm me far too much. But then again, you know, I think that's just on a point on that. Like, it's kind of a bit like, you know, people who are trying to cut down on alcohol. If it's not in the house, you can't have it. It's the same with sweets. People who are struggling on lifestyle diets. Some people's thing is chocolate. Some people's thing is sweets. Some people's thing is popcorn. I love bread. I'm so bad for bread. Give me a tiger loaf any day of the week. I love a tiger loaf.
But you don't have it in the house if it's not appropriate for your state.
No, it's exactly it, because I know that that's a thing. You know, I know that's a thing for me. So it's not going to be there unless I choose for it to be part of something that I want to celebrate or a nice meal or whatever else. But I think, yeah, it's like you say, it's like not razor focus on what you're having, but it's
just know there's something to look forward as a memory rather than like visualizing the burger you're going to eat. Try and think of it as I'm having a burger with my family. And I can't stress enough that whole thing of, you know, when we spoke in the show day, one of those girls that had these pick and mix Oreos, Reese's, Now for me, doing my fitness pound flexible dieting all the way through, when I go into a reverse diet in an off-season phase, I can have all the fucking Reese's that I want because you can scan them in. You can have that, like, it's fine. You can have them. So why would I then eat 4 packets of them when I come out the show rather than go for a nice meal with my family? But it's so easy when you're backstage, when you've just come off and everyone's, you know, going in.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't, you're like, well, why isn't she doing what we're doing? And you really do need to consider how that's going to feel and be able to stay in your own lane, because it's so polarizing. Same with that backstage with the figure girls.
Yeah, I've been at like kind of different contests where some contests have been quite heavily food focused backstage and some haven't because they've not really had the ability to do so. Like some venues won't allow it in and stuff like that, and they have to wait till they're out in the car park, and then by then you're not really focusing on it, you know what I mean? But no, I mean, I've been in situations more so in my early days as well where there's always like 1 or 2 girls or even just a backstage member of staff who will bring like everything for everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and cake, pizza,
cakes, cupcakes, sweets, like the big tubs of chocolates. Somebody will have made brownies, you know. It's like that kind of thing happens all the time. See, it's an interesting one because I've never been massively food focused post-show, even when I first started. And I don't think that that's anything other than, I think I mentioned this on earlier podcasts, I love the journey there. I find the day itself, I'm quite anxious. Like I find the day themselves quite difficult. So for me, I'm watching and looking and sort of taking it all in, and I'm so more in my head.
I love that. It's so cool.
You know what I mean? That I'm not like, get the cake away. I just need to concentrate.
And in some respects, that is good, isn't it? But I don't know about you. Have you ever had where you've actually then gone for a meal, sat down and thought, I don't think I want to eat this?
Yeah, you're not, because you've just, the adrenaline is massive. Yeah.
And you're so pumped from the show. And then you've also got like a complete opposite where your family and friends are like, well, didn't you want to come here and have what you've chosen? And you're like, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I just don't really, I don't know how I feel. And I've even had it where food's come out and it hasn't been cooked how I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And that's an interesting one. I mean, I'd have to say the times I like really remember post-show have been, and the ones I've really enjoyed is going for a meal with friends or family at that time. I remember a couple like really specifically and thinking, God, I'm so happy to be surrounded with these people just having this meal right now. Like that's the best.
yeah, it's so nice, isn't it? When I had it once where I had the trophy on the table and everyone was chatting and stuff. And then I just looked around and I was like, this is all my dreams come true.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's actually happened. And, and I only wanted a small meal. I didn't really, I wasn't feeling as driven by wanting to eat all the foods. It was more that just like, what have I just done?
Yeah, it is like that. It's a show. Shows are special. Like it doesn't matter what discipline it is. Like the actual whole process of getting up on a stage and presenting yourself and doing something like that, it's got just a special sort of thing to it. You feel proud of yourself. You feel proud of yourself. It's really nice. And I think that's something I would want to say to people who maybe you haven't got the result that you want. And maybe you are at that meal afterwards and you're kind of all, because I know I've been here in this situation. I know clients have been here with the mindset of, I don't even deserve this. I've not even come any place. You know what I mean? And that's just, if I could like help somebody reverse that psychology right now, that is not the point. The celebration of the meal after the show, regardless of the placing or the food after the show, is to give you credit for the discipline and the hard work that you've done, and that you're allowing yourself to say, do you know what, regardless of the outcome, I did this for me and I'm going to treat myself with kindness and give myself something to celebrate. It's like that. And I think that's really important, because some people can really be down on themselves and even start to form an unhealthy pattern with just celebrating as well.
Yeah, if you don't, like you say, feel like you deserve it. Stephen always sort of reminds me, he's very good at this, but he reminds me that actually Kieran's pretty much been through a prep as well, because we lived together. And
Yeah.
the way you treat those closest to you, sometimes you look back and you think, I shouldn't have behaved like that. I shouldn't have taken it out on them. It does happen. And I'm not going to say that I'm, not completely irrational at times, because I am. And it can be over. Kieran's done nothing wrong, but I'm really hungry. I'm training a lot, etc., etc. And Stephen always says, how nice do you think it feels for Kieran to be able to sit and have a meal with you and you not go, why are you having that? Or, for him to feel like he shouldn't eat certain things in front of you, because he's very good at not doing that. And he's like, what about those closest to you? Wouldn't it be nice for them to celebrate with you as well for what you've been through? It doesn't really matter what the placing is. This is your family and those that you love. They're the ones that are there forever. Show day's there for one day.
Yeah.
The people that have supported you for, maybe 6 months.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And it is so easy to like, it sounds terrible, isn't it? But you're so focused on yourself that you don't even think about that. And then suddenly when you take a step out of it, because you've done it, you're like, oh my God, like how solo have I been? I remember having that realization after my 2017 prep. And that 2017 one, I was going for the British title and I was going for my pro card with BNBF to get my DFAC pro card. And I was totally like I was gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like I just it was like it was just a total tunnel vision, all or nothing. I've not actually been like that in a prep before or since.
Yeah.
But that one was just like whew. My relationship at the time, the one I was in, was quite fractured anyway. And it was really, really challenging for me because I almost like went so solo that I knew post that time, post the show, that that relationship wasn't going to work.
And that is actually quite common for
Usually common. Mm-hmm. Like, because that whole thing was like, there was so much difficulty in the relationship in terms of communication, support. We weren't getting on. There was just so much shit that it was actually easier for me to tunnel my energy into my prep to save energy from all of that. I was like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I've got to focus on this. I don't have time for this. I want to focus on this. Reflecting back on that, was that the right way to deal with that situation with that person? No, it wasn't. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that wasn't going to work. It's just awful. It's an awful scenario.
The overriding factor there is for people that do have quite big life changes after a prep and a show, is that I find each prep exposes feelings that I maybe don't delve into when I'm at a healthier period in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like almost when you're, getting to that stage lean condition, you're like almost forced to think about these things, and it's almost like they come from the soul, because you're doing like a cardio session and you're hardly being able to move, and you're thinking, and thoughts are going through your head, and you're thinking, I didn't know I felt like this. Am I just being completely irrational, or are these feelings that I do need to nurture after my show?
Oh, hugely, yeah.
You keep putting them off, and you think, okay, so after the show, when I'm more rational minded, I can deal with that. So again, the psychological element of coming off the back of a show, if you're then going to go into, like you have, breaking up with someone, it's like you almost don't want to see past that day, because shit is going to hit the fan post.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, Sarah. It's like a thought process of, that's something I need to deal with, but I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that post show. Like I can deal with that post show. And you're like, I've almost call it the masking effect. Because sometimes if you've got other struggles or difficulties in your personal life and you're in the middle of a prep,
Yeah,
it's very easy for you to put that mask on, and there's these things to deal with, but you're like, they can wait. Like you kind of push it away. I think it was literally at the end of that 2017 prep, and I'd been offered, well, won the British title and I got the pro card, which was like, you couldn't tear me down on that. That was like, I don't care what's going on in my life. I've done everything for this. Like, that was kind of crazy. And even when I say it like that, I'm like, oh my God, it was so extreme at the time. Yeah, it was so extreme. It was like everything. And then I was faced with a really difficult situation in my relationship where my ex basically said, you go over to Miami and compete in that. Like, and he gave me this ultimatum, basically, that like, you're not going to that unless you kind of sort this out, kind of thing. Yeah. And for me, it was so distant by that point that I couldn't even almost fathom how somebody who is supposed to like care about you, put you in that situation. And I knew like that was just like, I'm gonna keep my head on focus for my pro show, but then see after this is that is it. Like, no more. So it gave me a bit of actually like resilience to do what I actually needed to do as well, which
and I think that's what people learn. They have that realization that they are strong enough to, if the relationships that you've had before doing a prep and a show aren't as stable as you maybe think they were. And that goes for friendships as well. And even I've known people to change their work and stuff because their colleagues just aren't getting it, and it becomes very detrimental to their mental health.
Oh yeah.
And in one respect, I'd say embrace those feelings, but also try and, some of them, if you do need to process it a bit more after the show before you take action, like if it was going to be leaving a job or something, or, things with your partner, it does need a bit of consideration after the show. But in your example, very common for people to know, finally, actually, that's it. It's done.
It almost like it clarifies things for you as well as, I mean, I know we're saying you push things to the back of your mind, but sometimes like you need to distance yourself from something to actually see it for what it really is.
Yeah, and have another focus that's so focused.
Yeah, and you know what was so surreal about that whole thing was that my ex was like a novice bodybuilder, but he understood bodybuilding. And so it was even more like,
I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, like this is my dream that's just happened, and you're now telling me like I can't do this. Like it was crazy at the time.
For people to consider if this sort of thing did come up, you know, another example would be if, say, your husband or partner is completely opposite and doesn't do bodybuilding, is to have an honest conversation with them and say, you know, for me, this isn't just a little hobby on the side. I'm really, really wanting to progress in the sport and it's something I'm passionate about. Are you willing to support that? And if they are, having that conversation, is it a case that they do their thing and they're more separate to it to enable them to support you more fully than if, you know, they're trying to like get involved with it, but actually they don't really care and that does the opposite?
Exactly. Yeah.
In all honesty, you know, one of the biggest tips here with anything to do with the show and post show psychologically is be honest and have those conversations. You know, if they do scare you, try and embrace that rather than put it off.
Yes. And just talk. I think that's the main thing I would want people to take away from this is if you are feeling that post-show, in that post-show kind of state of being lost and a bit down and upset and, you know, you've not got the focus or the drive and you just go into a bit of a slump, talk to people, talk. Like even anybody right now who's in a post-show phase are going to be very soon, which I know quite a few people are. And you hear this podcast and you want a bit of advice, reach out to both of us because honestly, been there. Yeah.
So, I mean, we've touched on a little bit about training and nutrition as well, and we're going to that in the second part of this episode. And I think
the diet and the training.
Yeah, and we'll maybe try and get some questions from people that have started listening to our sessions and maybe answer some of them on the next one as well and go over a bit more. They sort of mesh, don't they, with the nutrition and training and the emotional. But yeah, I'd imagine we'll still touch on some of the emotional elements when we do our second part of this as well.
Yeah. So good little first half of post show for the head.
As always, share the session if you've enjoyed it on Instagram, things like that. And any questions, any topic ideas, we'd love to have on board. And we're going to continue with our guests as well. So many things to look forward to. And again, thank you for the opportunity to share our wisdom with you.
always. And thanks, Sarah. That was awesome. I'll look forward to the next one.
Cool. I shall see you next time.
Peace. See y'all next time.